everybody. Normally, I would be highlighting the Sea of Stars messages available only during the patch where stars yearn right here as my good thing for the patch. But an idea popped into my head while I was reading those. What if Mirrorland isn't real? What if all of this is happening inside Nikki's head? So, this is just a very crazy theory, but let me explain. So, first of all, what we learn from all of those messages strewn about is that Nikki has a very great imagination. As outlined here, for example, Animal Friends of Mirrorland. When I was in elementary school, my favorite kind of essay was the observation diary. Of course, I was also very good at these imaginative prompts, like my dream, where you could dream big and let your imagination run wild. But whenever I lowered my head and carefully observed small living creatures, I always felt deeply moved by them, and I couldn't help but want to write something about what I saw. So back then, my most anticipated weekend activity was going to the zoo with my dad, my mom, and my sister. I would carefully observe every animal, noting down their appearance and movements. I would also imagine that somewhere in the world there must be magical creatures no one had ever discovered, and I, Nikki, would be the first person to become friends with them. Because of this, I became the animal expert among my classmates. Everyone called me the magical creature professor, and they were always curious to see what I had written next. Nikki also is very attached to her mother's profession, which just so happens to also have to do with styling, and she raids her closet multiple times as a child. Adventure, Nikki, age 8. Adventure Site, Mom's secret base. Nikki has made another major discovery. Mom's true identity? Mom always tells my sister and me that she's a stylist, but as a great detective, I've realized something. The job is far more amazing than that. It feels like magic. Yesterday, Mom was busy in her room, and I sat quietly nearby reading a fairy tale book. Mom didn't know that I'd been secretly observing how she worked the whole time. First, Mom sorted through lots and lots of sketches, big ones and small ones. There were even landscape photos Dad had sent inside. Then she took out a blanket sheet of paper and began writing and drawing quickly, softly murmuring words like summer and passion. In just a few strokes, she drew a beautiful girl. A few more swift lines later, the girl was wearing a dress even more beautiful than anything in my storybooks. Mom paused for a moment and thought carefully, then said softly, "No, the hem should be made of sheer fabric, something fluffy and light." With more quick strokes, she added soft cloud-like layers to the dress. Then Mom took out another brand new sheet of paper and drew lots of simple shapes, along with mysterious numbers. I thought her work was finished there, but today I saw something unbelievable in her room. There were all kinds of strange shaped fabrics that matched the drawings exactly. Mom was holding the fabrics and adjusting them on her mannequin partner, carefully shaping them. And the dress from yesterday's drawings had really come to life. When I grow up, I want to learn this incredible kind of magic too. So she finds styling to be magical. She's a very observant kid with a very large imagination, reminding you of any kind of character in particular by this point. But young Nikki is also no stranger to live action roleplay, or rather fantasy roleplay, as nobody else is really involved besides her, and her parents tend to encourage that sort of behavior. Diary of the Vampire Princess. Dad brought home the destined food of the little vampire princess. In a far, far away land, there lived divine beasts called fire dragons. The flames they breathe condense into magical fruits. One day, the Dragon King was wounded in a battle and bled, and the fire it breathed became the magnificent fruit I can see now. The glorious red-fleshed dragon fruit. That says that if I want to awaken the sleeping magic inside my body, I need to eat more treasures that are perfectly suited to vampire physiology, like this, and tomato with scrambled eggs too, cranberry jam, sweet red bean paste. I can feel it. The tiny black seeds inside the bright red flesh are the manifestation of the Dragon King's bravery. Mom also told me some wonderful news. The ceremonial dress for the vampire princess's coronation is finally ready. Every thread was spun together with moonlight, so even sunlight won't burn it when worn. The vampire princess would never just hide away inside some ancient castle. I'm going to conquer the giant monsters of the night. Also, my big sis finally acknowledged all the evidence proving that I'm truly the vampire princess. But when she called me Your Highness, I quickly told her to shh and carefully look around me. Luckily, there weren't any strangers nearby, and it can't be helped. My identity can't be revealed too openly. At school, I still have to live as an ordinary elementary school student. But the thing that actually cements this, because all of this is just like normal fluff for when Nikki was a child and when she was a growing girl and when she lived an ordinary life, right? The thing that cements this is that Momo is an ordinary cat. Let me explain. There's this text called Daily Life with the Kitten. Today I made a very special piece of clothing for a kitten I met. Although I made dresses for dolls before, this was my first time making clothes for a real little animal. I found him hiding in a corner, trembling all over. He must have been freezing. I wanted to make him a little outfit so that the wind and rain would never be able to bully him again. But making clothes for a kitten turned out to be much harder than I imagined. He kept wriggling around and didn't like it when the fabric was too tight. I had to be extremely careful, taking his measurements, gently and choosing the softest materials I could find. I also had to think carefully. How could I make sure he could still roll around and run freely? After discussing it with Mom, I decided on a loose cloak. I even made sure that there was space left for his little ears at the top. As for the color, I chose a warm sunshine-like yellow. It suits his white fur perfectly. I hope that from now on he can always bask in the sun and never get caught in the rain again. After I put the cloak on him, the kitten pressed against my hand. Was that his way of saying he liked it? A gentle warmth spread from beneath the soft fur like a tiny heater. It turns out that making clothes for others, bringing them warmth and something nice is such a happy feeling. Don't worry, little kitten. I'll keep making clothes for you and keep you warm forever. A kitten in a yellow cloak with white fur. Does that sound familiar to anybody? She just described Momo, but she didn't say that Momo speaks. And she hasn't given Momo any bipedal characteristics. Her mother doesn't seem to think that Momo looks weird. Her dad doesn't seem to think that Momo looks weird. Which implies Momo is an ordinary cat. Which kinda throws everything in here for a big loop. And where my theory comes from that Nikki is just Alice in Wonderland. When it comes to the fairy tale Alice in Wonderland, one of the big things about it is whether it happened or whether it's imaginary. I think with this text, with Daily Life with the Kitten, I can ask the same thing. Is Mirrorland real? Or is Mirrorland imaginary? Up until this point, we could just take flavor text as flavor text, but with this one, with Momo is a real cat, we can flip it upside down. We can now see it as Nikki really admires her mother's work as a stylist, and she sees clothes and making clothes as magic. She obviously has a big imagination, especially when it comes to animals, and she's not a stranger to live action roleplay with what we saw from Vampire Princess. She has a cat companion called Momo, whom she made cloaks for from a very early point. That's in no way extraordinary. Is Nikki in a coma? Or is Nikki playing make-believe in her mind? Or is all of this real? Because I think with this short amount of lore that disappears literally tomorrow, we can actually safely ask the question. Hence, I'm gonna push for the possible lore direction of Mirrorland is actually imaginary. But hey, what do you think? And how would you reconcile this flavor text in particular with everything else? The same way of seeing this is because this is throwaway text. You could argue that either it's a different Nikki from a parallel universe. After all, Sea of Stars is the conglomeration of all Nikki memories. You could argue that Momo was not special when he was a kitten, and he just grew into a very weird talking cat. That is a possibility as to where the game is going. You could also argue that because none of this lore is saved and it will be deleted at the end of the patch, that none of it matters. It's just pretty flavor text. But I would argue that if you wanted to press for an idea that Mirrorland is imaginary, the lore to do it with is right here. It's all in Nikki's mind. So, what do you guys think? What did you guys think about all of the little messages littering Sea of Stars during this very non-patch? Have you read them all? Because I did. That was very nice flavor text. If only it could actually be meaningful, and if only there was a patch to go with it. But we're stepping into 2.8 about literally tomorrow. So it's fine. It's fine. Let's see how the next patch is. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this as amusing as I did. Thank you so much for my Patreon supporters. And toodaloo for now.